So, did you know that jujitsu is actually the original form of the samurai? And when the samurai were disbanded because, guns came about and muskets. And in fact, towards the last 100 years or so, swords were not even their primary weapon.
What was their primary weapon?
A gun. A musket.
The samurais.
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, they would have the musket, then they would have like a spear, and then if they lost both of those, then they would reach for the sword. Samurai were the official military of
Japan?
of the Japanese. Well, it wasn't just Japan, but there were different tribes, there were different lords, there were different nations within Japan, and the samurai were essentially the fighting force that they had. And what was interesting is the samurai themselves would be representative of the rulers that they served. So if a ruler was generous, the samurai would be generous. And if the ruler was oppressive, the samurai would be oppressive. And
meaning they would alter their natural character.
A samurai is essentially synonymous for soldier.
Mm-hmm.
A soldier, a stormtrooper might be a good guy, but if he's being commanded by Darth Vader to invade something,
Yeah.
he's still an oppressive soldier, right? The same thing with the samurai. But what was interesting was when the samurai they were disbanded because they were one, no longer needed, and two, all this technology and military stuff came into play. Part of the disbanding of the samurai.
But why didn't they just adapt? You're talking about the military and all of that, and so the samurai kind of were disbanded.
Because
Why
there's a
didn't
whole
they
culture
adapt?
that was attached to samurai too, and they wanted to westernize.
So they were forcibly disbanded.
Yeah. It was through the Japanese government that they're like, no more samurai. Part of that is.
And now the Japanese don't even have an army.
But now the Japanese don't even have an army. Exactly. What was interesting was
Samurai should have came back.
well, I mean, I'm sure in some olden villages and stuff you can find it, but the remnants of what the samurai were is found in the art of jujitsu. And what's interesting is that the civilian form of jujitsu, which is judo, is essentially Japanese wrestling without much striking or anything like that. So if you want to learn wrestling without striking, you should learn judo. If you want to learn the jujitsu without the wrestling, you learn aikido. But if you want to have the aikido and the judo and the striking all at once, you learn jujitsu.
What if you want to have the aikido and the striking and the aqidah also?
And the aqidah,
Yes.
the theology,
Yes.
the theology has nothing to do with it.
Okay. That would have been a plug for your own dojo.
Yeah, but like
You could have said aqidah with the aqidah. Come to Belal Khan.
First of all, that just sounds weird, but I did have a.
That's like amazing. Aqidah and aqidah.
Look, there are there fundamental spiritual elements that some of them try to propagate? Yeah, absolutely. They have a different like spiritual things that they attach to it. Kalari, which is the South Indian martial art, which is in fact they say to be the founding martial art for things like kung fu.
I saw this viral YouTube video of this 90-year-old woman who masters cutlery, and she teaches it to girls as self-defense.
And they're basically trying to bring cutlery back because guess who disbanded cutlery?
The British.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they basically almost lost it because the people who knew cutlery rose up against the British military, and the British like, no more of this. We're banning the teaching of this martial art, and but now they're bringing it back. However, it's just the issue is it's been several generations of not having it. It's like, okay, how do you make it practical, right? It's not even martial, it's not even sport. So what is it?
I feel like cutlery is also the same way that Indians say calories. Is that right?
Well, it's calorie pettu.
How many calories does
How many calories?
how many calories does this soda have? That was a bad Indian accent, so I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's all good. It's interesting to see the evolution of all this stuff, but the thought that comes to mind is the thing that I've always wondered about. This fascinated me, especially with Islamic history and stuff. When I learned about is history of the Khulafa, is like the narratives about their martial nature and the conditioning that they must have had to have. Like you hear stories about they're in battle and they're fighting their enemy, and the guy with a single swoop, and you hear this in Japanese stories as well, in a single swoop he's able to
Cut a guy in half.
Yeah, and not only that, their ability.
Zubair ibn al-Awwam did that.
Yeah.
And he said, it ain't about the sword.
It's not about the sword, it's about the one wielding it.
Exactly.
Like people talk about these stories and people talk about the weapons, but almost no one cares to take a deeper look at the conditioning and what it like. How did they do that?
The nutrition, the type of calories they were having.
No, but like there's got to be more detail to it. I'm just sad that they don't communicate what that is.
Not only that, when you're talking about people who are fighting well into their 50s.
Yes. What was the name of the Sahabi that everybody wanted to stay away from because if he was the one that was killed, then the one who kills him is on the wrong side?
Ammar ibn Yaser.
Was it Ammar ibn Yaser?
Of course, you're asking me about my namesake. Ammar ibn Yaser, of course.
And
the Prophet ﷺ said Ammar would be killed by al-fi'atul baghiya.
Okay.
So al-baghiya means, baghi means transgressing. So
yeah.
he said Ammar will be killed by the transgressing party. And so Ammar was killed.
But the thing is, the guy was like 80 plus years old, and he was fighting in the military, and he was considered to be amongst the fiercest of fighters.
Yeah, I don't know about the fiercest of fighters part, but definitely fighting and campaigning into his 80s, absolutely.
How?
You know, this was he died during the Khilaf of Ali and Muawiyah.
Yeah.
You're talking about a good 30 years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ.
30 full, that's a lifetime for some people.
Yeah. And even Ali himself, Ali's in his 60s at that point, and Ali's a fierce warrior.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Never lost a battle. And he's
Think about a 60-year-old today. They were getting ready for retirement.
They're in an old home somewhere.
If not, then they're mentally preparing themselves to go to an old home.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the end of this clip. I just wanted to kind of share that.
Great.
I was like, all right, great. We can move on.
I was wondering, is this going to be like, are we going to segue into a name of Allah?
On that note, we end this clip. Do leave a comment below.
Yes.
And having said that, we're going to just move on.